All right, how you guys doing today? Today's video is gonna be more intensive. It's gonna be removing the transmission out of a Toyota Mr2 Sw20 with the 5th gen Caldina motor, 3S GTE. So this video is pretty much gonna show you how I do it. You know, me personally. If you find a better way, go ahead and comment below. But this is how I do it on this vehicle with this engine. The Gen 2s and Gen 3, it's going to be more cluttered with a lot more lines, a lot more hoses, a lot like stock airbox and all that stuff. I like to remove as much things as I can. It's just a lot easier for me to get to the bolts that I need to, especially the transmission bolts that connects to the block. There's 3 of them. The 2 top, you remove it with a 17mm socket, and then one on the side as well. Plus all the little bolts that's surrounding the dust covers and all that stuff. All right, if you want to fast forward this a little bit, you can. So this is my real-time installation. So it's gonna be a quite long video. I have no editing skills on this whatever. It's just my iPhone on a cheap little stand, and then me working on the car. So let's go ahead and remove the airbox or any hose that connects to it. And try to move it to a side. And of course your engine is different than mine. Okay, so we get to access the shifter cables as well. As you can see there, those 2 shifter cables, remove the pins out of them, and on the bottom we're going to remove the little bracket for the slave as well. And what you want to do at this time before you touch the starter is undo the negative cable on the battery, so that way you don't fry anything, especially with this positive wire right here. So a lot of guys think that this is a negative wire, but no, it's a live 12 volt. And I've heard guys, you know, grounding this, and then when they put the battery on, it short out the whole car. So my battery is unplugged. So put that to the side. And then when I like to work on cars, I want to put the plugs, the bolt back in where they belong, so you don't lose anything. And then the alternator is held on by a 14 socket bolt. Use it with a small extension. And also remove any negative cable that attached to the transmission. A lot of guys, they don't want to remove the starter. Maybe you can do it, but I like to do it. Remove everything. I went ahead and removed the starter. There's a bolt in here that's usually for the bracket for the coolant line on the Gen 2s. The Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5 doesn't, well, the Gen 4 and Gen 5, we don't use it. We just went straight a custom hose to the heater core. So, and then the next step is unplug all sensors, unplug, I mean pretty much unbolt all the negative ground wire that attached to the transmission. And then go ahead and remove this bolt with the 17mm socket, and then this bolt right here. Okay, and then we do with all that, and that's pretty much it for up here. So pretty much what you want to do is just remove everything that's attached to the transmission that can cause it be in the way when you when you remove the transmission, and undo all the mounts later on when I have the little X bar holding the engine up. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove everything now, and then go on the bottom, drain all the fluid, remove the axles, undo the engine mounts, the rear engine mounts, and then the front slave component as well for the shifters. So I went ahead and removed these two bolts that's holding on the transmission to the bottom end, and I also made these little contraption where you get the same size nut, same size bolt, and I just cut off the ends of it. So this will pretty much mount onto those two bolts, and it's kind of giving me like a guide of put the transmission on, and then the transmission is going to rest on this one. It's going to slide off a lot easier. So we'll go ahead and install this onto the transmission. So it's good to have if you do the swap more than once. So rather than the transmission resting itself onto the spline, this will pretty much hold the transmission up. While it's kind of like a guide where you put it on and off a lot easier. Okay, so it's on there. So get the camera out. It looks like that. Where it acts like a guide for the transmission to slide out of. Okay. Next part, since you're up here, we're going to remove that engine mount bolt that attached to the transmission, especially on the one with the wrench that I attached to. Remove that one, and then remove the top, which is this one right here, because once you're in the bottom of the car, it's really hard to get that bolt off. So remove that, the bottom with the 14mm socket, and then undo the 3-bolt on the side. Especially with the E153, you have all this extra. You have to have this extra one to hold it in place, and then go ahead and loosen up that bolt with the 17mm socket. Since you're up here already, it's a lot easier, a lot more torque. Especially when you're down there with the exhaust in the way, it's a pain in the butt. So go ahead and remove as much bolt as you can up here, and just pretty much label it, or just put it aside where you can keep it and not lose track of it. And also remove all the ground, negative wire, anything attached to the transmission that you think is gonna pretty much be in the way of you dropping it. And also remove the starter. And on the Gen 2s, there's a bolt that goes in here attached to the transmission. The Gen 4 doesn't have it. And the Gen 2s have a lot more brackets attached to the transmission as well. The S54 not so much, but especially the E153, the turbo model, it has a lot of brackets. So pretty much we remove all the bolts, wires, anything that's attached to the transmission. I already undo the cable, the shifter cable, and then loosen up these slave bolt as well, because once you're on the bottom, once that transmission mount comes off, it's a little bit tricky to get this off, but since you're up here, a lot of room, go ahead and do it. The Gen 2 is a lot more cluttered as well, so just figure out a way to get this out, but on the bottom or on top, either way. But for this car, it's a lot easier because the car does have a little bit of wire tuck, and very easy to get to. And then remove the front engine mount as well. So pretty much clear as much space as you can up when you're up here, and then once the cars lift up, drain the fluid, and then we work from the bottom and just pull the transmission out. I loosen up all the bolts that I need to from up here. Loosen up the engine mount bolt, loosen up that bolt right there with the 14mm socket, the side, the big one, is 17mm socket. And then the next step is lifting up the car, removing the wheels, removing the axles. That video, you can scroll below on the video that I changed the axles. So that's pretty much the same video. So I'm going to do all that process instead of recording it. So let's go ahead and remove the axles, remove the wheels, and all those goodies. All right. All right. Before I go underneath and do everything else on the bottom, I went ahead and got the support bracket, the engine hoist, I don't know, tripod thingy, where it pretty much mount against the side of the car. And then this piece right here, it goes straight down to the engine hook. So that way, when the transmission is ready to drop, I can just maneuver, just twist that little rod, and push it down, and then push up the engine, holding the engine in place. So this is very good. I mean, they're pretty cheap. They're like 75 bucks, I guess, on Amazon or whatever. You can buy them anywhere, Harbor Freight. If you're gonna do the transmission drop more than once, pretty much rather than paying a shop to do it, you can just do it yourself, which is a lot, you know, cheaper. You do it one time, it pays for itself. And also a transmission jack helps a lot as well. Or you can manhandle the transmission. But yeah, it's pretty much simple. You got a rubber plastic piece right there so you don't scratch the car on both sides. And then this is the bar for more support, for safety. But other than that, just pretty much aim it so that way it's nice and that can hold the engine. I go like this because the engine's on this way. So you can lower the engine by just twisting this nut right here. So pretty helpful tool. We'll see how this works. I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom now. Alright, so this is pretty much my setup. Removing the axles. So get a strap, hook it up to your suspension, and just hold it in place like this. Remove the passenger side. It's pretty easy. It'll slide right off. Remove the clip, and the whole thing will slide off. And then this side is about to come off as well. Same setup. As you can see, put a lot of rags down here so you don't rip the boot against these sharp edges, you know, that stuff. So a lot of guys ask me about the trick to getting these axles out, especially this part right here, because inside the teeth there's a little clip. For you to get the axles out, you have to go past that clip. So what I use is one of these. I found this, I got this damaged fork from the E153. Get a rubber helmet, put it against here, and then just bang it on this side. So just a little bit, enough for you to pass that C-clip, and then it'll pop out like this. So just bang it like that, and then it's ready to go out. So it's pretty loose now. So that's pretty much it on the bottom. Remove both axles, the hub come off, the hub come up, passenger axle, driver axle, and then pretty much undo all these bolts that attach to the dust shield. See that engine bolts right here, engine mount bolts. Remember that bolt that I told you up there is really hard to get. Luckily we got that out first, and then all the bottom bolts are easy to get out, especially this one right here. There's no way you can get it out from down here. These 3 bolts and the engine mount bolt in the back, I already removed it from the top. So this will come off and remove all these little bolts attached to it. This bolt's right here. Engine mount for the front, remove that bolt. The whole engine mount comes off, and then the whole sleigh will come off as well. So there's 2 bolts right here, 14mm wrench, which get them off, and then there's 2 top 12mm rough socket on top as well for the sleigh going to the transmission. So all of that will come off, and then you don't have to remove the clutch line. Just leave it on there, so that way you shouldn't bleed it again. But if you want to replace the slave, go ahead. It's a good time to replace the slave as well. Since I already replaced this already, we'll go ahead and leave that on there and remove these 2 engine mounts bolts. All right, that's it. All right, so pretty much here's the angle on the bottom of the transmission. Remove the engine mount on the rear. Axle is out. Unplug the speed sensor wire for the 93 turbos and for 93 MR2 and up. Remove all the bolts. that's attached to the transmission. Just go one round. There's no bolts left over. In the back, no bolts as well. On the Gen 2 MR2s, you'll see a lot of the all the brackets, supporting brackets for the transmission. That's like an L shape kind of attached to the engine and to the transmission. Remove those as well, and pretty much undo the slave. Undo the slave that was here, which is up here now. That's the slave cylinder. So the best way is remove the engine mount, and then remove this 2 bolt attached to the slave. Put this aside and remove the engine mount from here. And then there's 2 bolts on top, which are these 2 right here. Those go on top of the slave. Oh, it's kind of hard to see. It goes up to, it goes between, here's the heat shield. And there's 2 bolts that goes from one here and one here. That goes right here into the transmission. So remove that to the side, engine slave to the side. Just kind of follow the transmission, and then remove all the bolts that attach to the block or the heat shield dust cover. And that's pretty much it. I loosen up the 2 bolt right here so I can remove my hand when I'm on top. And the transmission is ready to come off now. So we'll go ahead and lower the car, put the transmission jack underneath, and just slide it out. Okay, so I went ahead and removed this engine bolt on the bottom, these 2 on this side that attach from the bottom up, and the transmission is right about to drop. So I went ahead and got one of these transmission jack. You can use regular floor jacks, but everything's already set up for the transmission. So basically this transmission jack, I can tilt it up and down, left and right, and then you can lower it as well and go up on it. So I'll go ahead and just, the engine's ready to just pull out of the transmission. So everything's ready to go. There's 2 bolts already loosened up. So what's holding it up, the transmission, is the transmission jack, and the top crossbar, it's holding up the engine. So I'm gonna go ahead and lower the transmission and lower the engine, so that way we can clear this side right here so I don't hit it. Alright, and watch out when you lower the engine, make sure the crank pulley doesn't touch the other side of the car as well. So I'll go ahead and just kind of pry out the transmission right now and just lower the engine. I mean the engine first, lower the engine first and then transmission, then pry the engine out. Pretty much right in here, I'm lowering the engine. This will lower the engine a little bit, and then simultaneously I pretty much release the jack of the transmission. Put it down some more, and then just do it so that way it kind of angle it down. Enough room for the bell housing of the transmission. Clear the frame on this side, and also once in a while check on the other side. This crank pulley doesn't touch the frame right here, so it's getting pretty close. So it's getting pretty close to the frame. So just make it somehow that it doesn't touch it, so you don't damage your crank pulley. Okay. All right. So I'm on the bottom of the car, and pretty much it's already maxed out that I cannot touch the crank pulley to the frame anymore, and that's enough room for the transmission to slide out. And we'll go ahead and just carefully pry it out, and then remove the transmission away from the engine, and we can just pull it straight down diagonally. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get that process out of here. So we pretty much have the transmissions kind of separated from the engine. use like a big pry bar, just pry it out the edges. Watch out for the dust shield. So pretty much the engine and the transmission, it's kind of hard to see. It's let me see that. It's away from the transmission. So all we gotta do now is just kind of wiggle it out. Just kind of wiggle it out, and then the engine should pop out. All right, the transmission is off. So I was having a hard time dropping it because of this mount right here. So I suggest, if you guys want to do it easier, remove this from the top. The one long 17mm socket opener. Remove that, and then remove these 3 bolts, because I'm having trouble. Pretty much it's hitting this piece right here. So yeah, remove these, and then because this is hitting the side of the frame. All right, and then it should drop, and then you just pull it out and it'll just drop right down. All right, let's go ahead and replace the clutch, if anything, flywheel, pressure plate, all the goodies, and then just mount it back up. All right, so I went ahead and inspect the flywheel, clean it up a little bit. According to the BGB, the torque on the flywheel bolt is 80 foot-pound. I went ahead and Loctite it when I first installed it. And a way for you to lock and to crank it is I put a long wrench right here, and pretty much it's gonna hit against this thing or down here, so that way enough torque to hold it while I torque it to 80 foot-pound. And then also the pressure plate bolts. For the pressure plate, according to the BGB MR2 Bible, it's, let's see, it says 14 foot-pound, and I also use Loctite as well for that too. So we'll go ahead and clean everything up, put the clutch kit back on, and then we're good to go. Oh yeah, and also this how the bearing installed. The clip goes back here, and then make sure you loop the ball, and then you loop this piece right here that goes into the slave, and then also loop the shaft. Okay, loop the shaft only, do not loop the spline itself, because that can cause oil going to the disc, and then that can ruin your clutch kit. So make sure you loop the shaft only, and always use OEM bearing. According to this is an NSK bearing, which is same as the OEM bearing, which I have right here. It's an OEM bearing. That's the part number if you want to use it for the order it, and I have a couple of them. And when you open up the package, guess what it says? Japan NSK. NSK bearing is OEM bearing. So, and I know that the S54, it used a Nachi bearing, so you can use those as well. I don't know the part number for it. I just ordered it from Toyota because I don't know. I like OEM stuff. So go ahead and replace the bearing, anything you need to do. And replace the seals. You can look that up on my other how to rebuild the engine, and the right PVC pipe plastic from Home Depot. Find the right size for it, and then as well as the other side too. And you just hit it in, replace everything you need, clean it up a little bit, paint it, whatever you want to do. But other than that, I'm gonna go ahead and install the clutch kit, and then mount the transmission back up again. I also forgot to mention, when I do the torque on the flywheel, I do increment of 20 foot-pound. So I go 20, 40, 60, and the final one 80. And I go in a star pattern, so you kind of zigzag it. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's what I do. And then same thing with the pressure plate. I would do it around, I would give it like around maybe like 7, and then like 7 and then like 14. So in the increment, in a star pattern as well, just like a lug wheel. All right, so the clutch kit should come with a little tool, the spline tool. That's this will go like this, and then the pressure plate will go over that. And then pretty much this tool, what it does is it's kind of, you're gonna try to center as much as possible. So that way it's kind of like that on the flywheel. So that way it's all nice and even. So when you mate the transmission, it actually mates perfectly. And then that's pretty much it. So I'll go ahead and do that install right now. All right, I went ahead and pretty much install all the flywheel bolts, and the spline is centered perfectly. So it's ready to go down and put on the transmission. And as far as the transmission goes, it looks good, everything to go. These dial pins right here, I would put some anti-seize on it, so that way it can go into the transmission a lot easier as well. All right, I went ahead and put it on the transmission jack. And then this pretty much, you can tilt it left, right, and then the back lever can go up and down. So what you want to do is you want to make it as much even as possible with the engine. So that way, once you made it in, it should slide straight in. So we'll go ahead and lower the car and just pretty much try to maneuver this into those 2 dial pin up there. One here and then one over here. So it's kind of like a guide, so that once it's in, you just slide right in, and then I can undo that with the little flathead screwdriver. All right, cool. And here it is, about to mate on. It looks pretty nice and even as far as the transmission goes, and the bolt of those 2 pins are pretty even. So I'm trying to match the engine with the transmission, the way that it's angled. So I can play it with this and then the lever, so that way it can nice and even once it goes up. And the jack does go up on it, so I'll go ahead and do that as well. All right, so here's a setup. Got a wooden block back here. Pretty much, this is pretty much even with the engine itself. So I'm gonna lower the car. Another way you can do it if you have jacks in is just kind of angle as much as you can on it. But yeah, it's ready to go down. All right, that's pretty much the setup. And look like it's good. All the pins line up. So I'll put the bolt in and we're good to go. And I went ahead and put this plate on, the transmission plate. These are 38 foot-pound of torque, and then these two bolt on, and the one on the side as well. That one right there. That one right there. So those 3 are the main one. Go ahead and put the engine mount back up, put the engine up, and then just re-torque everything, and just pretty much put all the bolts back where it's supposed to be. All right, go ahead and just crank this up, so that way you can pull the engine up, transmission mount up, and put all the bolts in. And from there, we'll go ahead and torque everything down. Put out the nut bag, the slave bag, the clutch line, all those goodies. All right, let's go ahead and install torque the engine mount on the driver's side. 47 foot-pound, the 3-bolt, 1, 2, and 3. So it's this one right here, 47, and then these 2 on the bottom. These 2 right here, 1 and then 2, 47 foot-pound. Okay, torque those down. The engine mount, this one right here, there's a nut on this side and there's a bolt on this one. This one is 58 foot-pound. So torque that to 58 foot-pound. So according to the 3 17mm head bolt, it's 47 foot-pound, which is this guy right here. This guy, one there, and then one right there and one right there. So it's 47 foot-pound. That guy right there is 47, and then this guy right here is 47, and this guy right here down there, with the 17mm socket, 47 foot-pound. Okay. And also anything that's 14 millimeter head bolt, 34 foot-pound. So pretty much all the accessory for the bracket, the alternator, and all those goodies on the back side as well. So those one are 34 foot-pound. Anything with a 14 millimeter head or a bolt, torque that to 34 foot-pound. Okay. All right. So right now we're gonna go ahead and install the slave cylinder. So this two right here, we'll go ahead and mount onto these two up here. Okay. The trick is to get this in the fork first, and then you push it in. It's a little hard because right now there's some pressure on the line. So go ahead and just stick the rod in there, and just everything do by hand tight. Do not use any kind of tools. A lot of time I see the bolt on the transmission strip a lot. So hand tie it in first. The longer bolt will go into the one nearest to the boot, and then the shorter one will go outside. Okay, and then go ahead and reinstall the clutch shifter cable to the selectors. And what you want to do is you want to grease or anti-seize this rod right here, so that way later on, next time you remove it, it's a lot easier. So anti-seize this part and then this part. And then you can get the shifter cables at MR2 Heavens. They make a solid one, which is freaking amazing. All right, let's go ahead and install the slave and the shifter cables and all those goodies, and the engine mount as well. I went ahead and put the two top bolt on the slave cylinder bracket on. The trick with this one is put a nut on the bottom of the where the front engine mount bracket's gonna go. Put the bolt in there first, and then tighten up the two 12-meter socket bolt. So that way, because when you tighten up here first, this thing is gonna be all tight, and it's really hard to get this bolt in. So if you put the two top bolt loose, put this in, then you tighten it, then you can move it by hand. So that way you don't strip the bolt on the transmission at all. Okay, so that's a little trick, so that way when you work on it. All right, we'll go ahead and torque these engine mount bolt, 54 foot-pound, and 71 for the long one, and then 57 for the transmission by the slave. So 57, 54, and 71. So this one is 57. This one is 54, and then the long one, which is this one right here, 71. So right now I let everything loose, so that way I can align the engine mount over here as well. So for these three over here, this one says 29 foot-pound. Oh. So 29, 70, 57 for the two middle one, and then 64 for the long one, which is this one right here. So it's 29, 57, and this one right here is 64, which is this bolt right here. That bolt right there going to the engine side. So right now everything is loose, even this one down here. These three on the cross member is 47. So these are 47 according to the BGB, 47. All right, so right now everything is loose, everything lined up perfectly, and then we'll go ahead and then we'll just tighten everything from the frame, and then the engine mount, for the cross member, and then these two are the last one. This one, and then this one will be the last to be torqued down and everything. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. All right, let's go ahead and install the axles, both axles, axle nut, and just pretty much retorque everything again. On the two ball joint bolt right here, you're looking at about, it says 83 foot-pound for the two ball joint bolt on both sides. And then if you want to retorque the axle Allen bolts, they're 48 foot-pound. And then if you want to retorque the cross member bolts, they're 83 foot-pound. And let me see what else we need. And the axle nut itself is 217 foot-pound. Try to find that right here. 217 foot-pound with some Loctite and some cotter pins on there as well. Lock cap, I'm sorry. Okay, and then those two arms, 76 foot-pound. Which are these guys right here, 76 foot-pound. Okay, let's go ahead and retorque everything and then lower the car, and then we work on top. All right, to torque the axle nut, I just put a screwdriver in here and hold it in place, and then I'll just torque it while the caliper and bracket holding it in place. So that's how I torque the axle nut. You can choose your way if you want, but it works for me. All right, so on top here, go ahead and put your starter back on. Double check all the bolts, kind of trace the transmission. Make sure that all the bolts attached to the block or the dust shield. And the Gen 2 and Gen 3 have this weird little shape metal bracket for the coolant hose, goes to there, and then for that go to the heater core. And then just go ahead and double check everything. What I'm gonna start doing from now on is put some white out on like the bolt that I touched already, so that way keep me peace of mind, like, you know, I touched that bolt already. So all right, and yeah, that should be it. And just like again, just make sure all the bolts are back, make sure they're all tight and everything up. And if you like this video, go ahead and like it, subscribe it, share it, whatever you want to do with it. And I really hope this video helped you guys out on how to swap a transmission. A Gen 5 like this, Gen 4 is a lot easier than Gen 2 and Gen 3, just because it has a lot more wiring, a lot more hoses, a lot more stuff involved in this area right here. But the Gen 4 and Gen 5, it's a lot cleaner. It's just a lot easier for you to do. But the main thing is just getting transmission on and off. So what I do is just buy the right equipment for it. Get the transmission jack. They're like $100 off Harbor Freight, and the little cross tower. That's like another $70. So $170, good investment. If I touch the transmission more than once, I'm gonna buy the tool, because the shop's gonna charge you what, like 5, 6, 7 hours to do, and that's a lot of money. So if you want to do it yourself, I hope this video helps. All right, guys.